I can edit this anyways. Hello, I'm Matthew Peters, and this is my mom, Mina Kono. I'm going to be interviewing her today, so thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Okay, so to start off with, she is a physician trained in internal medicine and pediatrics that works in the orthopedics department at Kaiser Permanente. Thank you. She attended UCLA, graduating with a Bachelor's of Science degree in Kinesiology, and finished her prereqs for medical school at Long Beach. Represent. And then later attended UC Davis to complete medical school to get where she is now, obviously excluding the years of residency and all that further education. But we've talked briefly about her kind of process in getting into medical school and, you know, where she is now, but we haven't really gone truly in depth. So this is like the first time, really. All right. So any questions?
Nope.
No. All right.
Ask
So
away.
to start off with, what led you into studying kinesiology to become a doctor?
So I got accepted to UCLA as a undeclared major because when I applied, I couldn't find any major that I was interested in. All I knew about was like chemistry and biology, and I knew I didn't want to study biology, which was like plants and animals. I was interested in the human body. So it was like the first week of school, and I was looking through the schedule of classes, looking at the classes, and I read something about like anatomy or something, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? So I had never heard of kinesiology. I didn't even know it was a major there, and I just started reading what the major was and what the classes that were required, and I said, this is exactly what I wanted to study. So that first week I went to kinesiology department. I said I want to change my major to kinesiology. Yep.
All right. Going off of that, having gone to UCLA and you're taking kinesiology, what was the kind of rigor it took to graduate with such a competitive major at such a competitive school?
Yeah, so it's a really competitive major because most everybody in it is either pre-med or pre-physical therapy, which are both really competitive fields to go into. So, so it was pretty competitive. I mean, you know, just like any school, it's the science classes, OChem, general chemistry, you know, they're going to weed you out. You still have to get good grades.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know. You've told me, yeah. All right. Okay. So then, you know, with that rigor, what kind of habits did you have to develop, or did you have to stick to a routine to, you know, really, you know, do well at UCLA, given that difficulty?
Yeah. So, choosing kinesiology was the best thing I did because even though the classes were really difficult and challenging, I loved what I was studying, and that was the biggest difference. So I'm glad you're doing kinesiology and not biochemistry.
Okay.
At the other school.
Thank you. Okay.
Because it seems like you enjoy it.
Yeah.
So it is. It's kind of daunting because I was in the dorms, and people who were like pre-med or even engineering, they're really more competitive, you know, majors. You know, I just saw I felt like everybody else was just studying a lot at night, on the weekends, and I thought, this is kind of, I don't know, I didn't want to look back on college and not have any fond memories. Like, I don't want to just remember just studying and that was it. Being in the dorms, you know, made friends and wanted to go out, so it was initially kind of a challenge. Like, I was like, God, you know, how am I gonna, make this enjoyable but study what I want to study? So I actually did, you know, pretty well. You do have to study a lot. But again, when you're studying something that interests you, that makes all the difference.
Yeah, I get exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Plus, later on, what the great thing about kinesiology is that things, when you get into biomechanics, it actually makes things make sense. So you take physics, you don't really understand, you know, you learn about like force and lever arms and length and stuff like this, but you really can apply it when you take something like biomechanics. You know, why do you a certain exercise to build up your biceps?
Yeah.
Why is this one, you know? So it actually kind of put everything together in a way that made it interesting and therefore easier to learn and understand. But But as I was going through school, you know, you're gonna laugh. I had a boyfriend, and I got a little sidetracked. Let's just say that, you know, you get other interests and stuff.
Okay.
So
You don't have to go into specifics.
I won't, but he was
get it.
older. He was already graduated from UCLA, also
Yeah.
kinesiology. And so, you know, I was kind of torn. Like, you know, I was actually pre-med going into kinesiology. But again, because it was so competitive, I thought, oh, well, I love the major, so I definitely want to stay in the major. But I ended up kind of, like, I think it was my physics class that I ended up taking the non-med school level physics. So you'll see. Anyway, so I kind of, you know, I finished everything. I didn't finish everything from med school, but I graduated just in like 4.25 years. You know, I did have to take summer school. And I thought, oh, you know, I was thinking pre-med still, but again, I was in this relationship. So it wasn't until afterwards, and my, you know, Uncle Michi, brother, was going to medical school at UCLA, right? I remember I had graduated and I was just kind of working and like insurance and stuff. And every time I would see your Uncle Michi, I would hammer him. I just ask him question after question. What are you learning? You know, have you done, you know, anatomy yet? Have you done cadaver lab? Have you done all these things? And I realized, I'm like, you need to just go to med school, because all I wanted to hear about was med school. So I ended up, because I had to finish my requirements for med school, that's when I came to Long Beach. And I registered as a post-baccalaureate in nutritional science, so I could take the class, but I could take all these other upper division classes, like nutrition classes as well. And nutrition is also something I'm really interested in. So again, you know, it was challenging, it was interesting stuff. But in doing so, I finished, you know, my physics, you know, that would requirement for med school. Plus I did pretty much all this coursework for nutritional science. And I had teachers here write me letters of recommendation, my nutritional science classes, teachers. And I got accepted to med school. And I decided to go to med school instead of staying one more year and finishing my thesis, in which I would have gotten a master's.
Yeah.
Because my ultimate goal was to go to med school. But it was great. It was actually really great learning here. It's very, very different from UCLA. I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
The
yeah,
teachers
I got like
actually knew who you were, which was nice.
Yeah. So
They
like,
actually really knew the students.
actually being interested in it, and like
Yeah.
constant studying and like applying yourself and your interests.
Yeah.
So yeah. I can somewhat relate with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then moving on, once you graduate
Oh,
UCLA.
so I'm going to interrupt you. So going back there.
No, you're cool.
It is important I think, to have a well-rounded experience. For me, that was that. I don't think I would have been happy if all I did was study. So I know, you know, you're a runner.
Yeah.
I was in cycling.
What?
You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah. So I was in cycling. I was like,
Oh wait.
I was vice
Come.
president, like the cycling club. So we would meet. We would go biking. You know, to Malibu,
You were the
whatever.
president?
I was like the vice president, I think, of the club. My roommate, we cycled together. We raced a little bit. So it was fun. You know, and I think that's what made the experience that much more pleasurable, and, you know, to get through. And even though you are studying hard, it does take up time. And I work too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So going back to when you graduated from UCLA and you moved on to medical school, you know, with all that information and knowledge you learned over, you know, those 4, and then I guess that extra year with Long Beach, how relevant?
It was 3 years.
With Long Beach?
Yeah, because I remember I almost finished my master's. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Online sources say otherwise. I'll just say that.
Does it really?
Yeah, totally.
Here's my
So
CV.
this 7 years?
Yeah,
Oh,
but I
Jesus.
wasn't going full time though, because I was just, you know, I don't think I was taking a full load, because I had to, you know, for physics you can only take one a semester, so that took 2 years, right, to finish that.
Okay.
But I got to take all my nutritional science, which was like great, and I took upper division like cell biology and other classes too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with Long Beach and UCLA, you know, when you took on medical school, with the hindsight of what you've learned in both those different, realms, how relevant was the information that you learned in college when you applied it to medical school?
It was really relevant. I really feel like kinesiology really prepared me well for med school, because I had already taken anatomy, physiology. I had taken a lot of classes that I think anatomy, physiology is kind of the one class I feel like that you have to do that everybody has to do in med school, and it's memorization, all memorization, and the more you get, the better. I even took anatomy, physiology in high school. So I feel like I was really prepared, at least for that in med school, which a lot of people were struggling if that was the first time they were ever taking it, because it's a lot of memorization. Yeah. Plus in kinesiology, you learn, muscle and all that stuff. And so you could apply it. I worked at the sports club, LA. So it's, you learn, you're just kind of putting what you learn into practical use, and you can just understand it better. Okay.
More like medical school, it kind of felt like more of an extension of college rather than something completely different, like you were starting a blank slate.
Kind of. It wasn't, yeah. I mean, it wasn't, because I've always been a science major. It wasn't like coming from like a English major or a history major and then taking all the science, because I had done all of that. And like college, studying, like I loved, going to UCLA. It was a great experience, and I loved my major. So that's what made it all like doable, and it wasn't hard. I mean, it was, it's always challenging. You have to study hard, and there were some all-nighters what you're studying, but it's always nicer when you're doing what you want to do ultimately, which what med school was like. Med school's super, it's a lot of work. But I think in med school was the happiest time in school. I was happiest at med school.
Med school.
Yeah. More than UCLA, probably because, it was, everybody, we're all kind of in this group doing the same stuff, and yeah, it was, so I mean, you're always kind of working. I always felt like it was never ending, all the hoops you have to jump through. So I warned you about that.
Well, we'll see when the time comes.
Always being tested.
Okay. Yeah. So then after finishing medical school and moving on to your job at Kaiser, what kind of responsibilities do you face like in an average day?
So I did. So my major, so after med school, I went to residency at Cedars, right? Yeah. And I did combined, so internal medicine and pediatrics. So I ended up getting, I'm board certified in both. Most people just pick one, but I couldn't decide which I wanted to do. So I liked both, so I did both. So at Kaiser, because I'm internal medicine trained, I'm not a surgeon. I work in orthopedics. Everybody else is a surgeon. Well, when I joined, everybody else was a surgeon. I was kind of like the first non-surgeon to work in orthopedics full time. And so now I basically see non-surgical cases, right? I see hand, elbow, upper extremity stuff, plus pediatrics, because I have my pediatrics background. So, the good news is I don't see any life or death stuff, because I don't like I don't like trauma. I don't like ER. I don't like a lot of, like acute blood and guts kind of. I just don't like that. But I like the whole. I think that's why I liked internal medicine. I like, when I get a patient, I'm like, what's going on? I like that intellectual kind of inquisitiveness. It's like being a detective. You're trying to figure out what's going on, especially, you still see stuff that you haven't seen before. Yeah.
It's like more critical thinking, you could say.
Yeah, but with all the information, all the education I've had, and all the experience. Yeah. So that's what makes it still great, even though, most of the stuff, like, what it is, you can treat them, whatever. There's always still stuff you're like, not sure really what's going on.
Sorry. Okay. And then with that responsibility, are there any sacrifices that you've had or had to make because of the job you have?
Well, yeah, you guys know. So, I start super early, right? Yeah. I leave the house before 6 o'clock. Basically, so I can finish early, miss traffic and get home, basically to take care of you guys. As more when you were younger, but go to your races, get home, take Derek to baseball, start dinner or whatever. So you guys all would get yourself up, get yourself to school by yourself. I wasn't home. Yeah. So right. I tried to make most of your guys's stuff, like all your races,
Yeah.
and that was great. I can kind of adjust my schedule a little bit, have someone come in at lunchtime so I can leave even earlier if you had a race. And then, like, I just, because I had your schedule earlier, I was able to make changes, which is nice.
Right,
Yeah,
sweet.
and go to
Yeah,
stuff.
just the time constraint.
Yeah.
And with your job, what kind of impact do you make on your patients and your community with the service you give?
So it's just nice. It's nice to be able to help people. Oftentimes, the reason people are coming to me is because they're in pain. They're in pain, right?
Yeah.
From their elbow, their wrist, their thumb, their finger. And so it's nice to be able to, first reassure them, because the majority of stuff is not serious and stuff. But then you also educate them on what their condition is and what can be done about it. I think the main thing, like in orthopedics, is in anything you do, you use all these like labs and internal medicine and stuff, but x-rays. So we use a lot of x-rays, right? Or MRIs. You don't treat the x-ray or the MRI. You always treat the person in front of you. So even though the x-ray or MRI shows something,
Different.
you're going to treat somebody differently
Yeah.
if they're 25 or if they're 85.
Yeah, we learned that.
Yeah.
We learned that.
You learn that.
We learned that. I pay attention.
So you always treat the patient. You don't treat the study. You treat the patient.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Okay, moving on to the final stretch. Last two questions. Wrapping it all up. When you try to tie... It's your phone. When we tie your path to my own, with taking kinesiology and then hopefully going to medical school and then working in some sort of field. I haven't decided yet. Given that 30-year gap between the time you are doing what I'm doing, what do you think has changed in those 30 years? How is my version of going to college and going to medical school going to be different from what you experienced those 30 years ago?
So I don't know if the experience is much different. I think because you still have to take pretty much the same classes and kind of, take the MCATs and all that stuff. You have the requirements that haven't changed. I think really what's different is that you're just growing up in a different time. And I think people of your generation, it's hard to, you see a lot of tragedy that's happened in your lifetime. Right.
Yeah.
So I think for a lot of people, having a long-term goal, which going to med school it's a long-term goal. Like, think about it. 4 years at least here, right? At least 4 years of med school.
Yeah.
And then the training. And then even when you finish residency, there's still more training. So, I think a lot of people realize when things happen that, you don't anticipate, you can't plan for, that, just like I had to do, like, you just have to decide if this is still something that you really are passionate about, enjoy learning, which is going to make it all easier, not easier, but it's going to be make it worth it. Like, I still don't think you should go into it because you think you're going to make a lot of money or be secure and stuff, because there's other things you can do and start making more money right away than this. You have to always just want it. And anywhere down the line, I think it's really important that, if you decide that, like, gosh, this is not what I thought it was, I'm really not enjoying this, it's okay to go to take another path.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't feel that. Like, they feel stuck in their job because they spent so much time there. The difference, too, I think, for you is that because mental health is such an important thing, they didn't talk about it so much when I was going through med school and stuff, but I think now for admissions, they're looking for someone who's had some kind of life experience, who can show maturity, which is also what they look for us, but somebody who can not only do the work and have the, I guess, intelligence or whatever to be able to, apply what you learn, but also be able to make it through med school. I mean, and not just med school, just the rigors of that, just to be able to deal with the stress and the demands, but also what you see when you're going through training. You're gonna see people die. You're gonna see like kids super sick. Yeah, you're going to have to pronounce people dead and stuff. But you also get great things like you get to deliver babies. You know, this is all through training. But people don't realize that, you know, you're so young still, and to like be in those positions where you're telling somebody that they have cancer. I mean, you're going to have to do that.
You gotta do that?
Yes, you're going to have to do that. And that's all part of the training. So that's why, Jesus. You know, kind of having your own experience, you know, going through hardship yourself, kind of, it helps you because, you know, it's not just all you've done all your life is study. And that's the only thing that you know. Life experience is gonna prepare you better for going into medicine if you want to do patient care. Okay. But even training, anybody who, even a radiologist or pathologist, you still have to go through med school, which means you're gonna have patients that you have to take care of. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, thanks for that. And then the last question: what's the one set of advice that you'd give to any aspiring kinesiology student or medical school student?
Yeah, just, you know, I hope that everybody goes into kinesiology does it because, you know, they're interested in it. I mean, that's why I chose it, and I think that's why, you know, as rigorous and being, you know, competing against other people who are like pre-med or pre-PT, it's so interesting to me, and I still love talking about it because it's something that really interests me. And if you know, are finding that you're really liking your classes, you're gonna be more interested as the more you learn. Yeah. And I've said to this to other people that you're like, the more you learn, the realize how little you know. And so it is kind of a path of always learning, which I think is great for me, right? I'm always even going to conferences. I'm still getting, you know, I'm doing fellowships or whatever. Forever. But for me, that's what I like doing. I feel like I'm always learning new things. And again, just like with med school, it just, you know, because it's such a sacrifice emotionally, you know, mentally, physically, and the time you put in, not even that, just the cost of going to med school now. If you don't get into like a UC,
thanks for that.
Right?
Thank you.
So no, but luckily you got, you know, you have all the money saved up, right? Yeah, because tuition's just it's ridiculous, you know, for some people. Yeah. You know, and because it's so competitive, you know, you may have to go to state or whatever, but again, it's worth it if you love it, and it makes it all worth it, and you get satisfaction from helping people and doing that.
Okay. Yeah. All makes sense. All checks out. All right. Well, that concludes the interview. It's my mom. Thank you for being here. I know it was a bit of a drive.
No, it's on my way home.
You don't use it. Okay, whatever. It makes it sound better. All right.
You're gonna edit that out.
No, I'll keep all of this. All right. So yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that concludes the interview, I guess.
All right. Good. All right. Hope you get a good grade.
Thank you. I need it after the last quiz.
Oh.
No, we don't talk about it.